Okay, so I want to make this video for a couple reasons. One, because it's February, I believe it's February 16th, but it's still time, New Year's Eve time, New Year's resolutions times. And it's time to remind yourself to get back on your New Year's resolutions if you're falling off on any. I've fallen off on quite a few. I've been trying to organize this place and paperwork and all that other stuff, and still working on it, but don't give up. You really got to April 15th, most of us, to get our stuff together. But anyway, I'm making this video because also I want to talk more about this Kendrick Lamar stuff, but I want to talk about this Kendrick Lamar stuff statistically. This is so funny that the loud critics, it's not a lot. The loud critics are very loud and they're very upsetting. A lot of people really love this Super Bowl halftime performance show. It's the most popular and the best critically acclaimed Super Bowl halftime show since Michael Jackson. Broke Michael Jackson's record. The first Super Bowl in all these decades to break Michael Jackson's Super Bowl record. It's insane. I do believe there was like 1990 was the first. When was Michael Jackson's Super Bowl? Let's find out. Hey, Google. When was Michael Jackson's first Super Bowl performance?
Michael Jackson's first Super Bowl performance was at Super Bowl 27 on January 31st, 1993. It was a truly iconic performance that changed the landscape of Super Bowl halftime shows forever.
Hey, Siri. How well did Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl halftime perform statistically?
Okay, I found this on the web for how old did Kendrick Lamar's...
They found me. Let me try it with Google. Hey, Google. Hey, Google. How did Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl performance perform critically and ratings-wise?
Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl 59 halftime performance was met with a mix of critical acclaim and controversy. Critically, many praised Lamar for delivering a thought-provoking and visually stunning show that challenged the typical Super Bowl spectacle. Time magazine highlighted how Lamar rewrote the rules of the Super Bowl halftime show by prioritizing narrative and political commentary over sing-alongs and nostalgia. Hot New Hip Hop emphasized the performance as a landmark moment, noting that Lamar became the first rapper to simultaneously have 3 albums in the Billboard 200's top 10. Fans on social media lauded Lamar as a legend in the making, praising his artistry and cultural impact. However, the performance also faced controversy. Some viewers felt that Lamar's set was the worst Super Bowl halftime show ever, criticizing its lack of mainstream appeal and perceived exclusivity. Kid Rock questioned how Lamar was chosen for the halftime show, suggesting that it was a result of the NFL's focus on diversity and inclusion. He also criticized the performance for being exclusive and not catering to a wider audience. Despite the mixed reactions, Lamar's Super Bowl performance undoubtedly made a statement. It showcased his unique ability to blend artistry with social commentary, pushing the boundaries of what is expected from a Super Bowl halftime show.
Evolution, baby. Hey, Google. How did Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl show perform in the ratings?
Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl 59 halftime show was a massive success in terms of viewership. Here's how it performed in the ratings. Record-breaking viewership. Lamar's performance drew a staggering 133.5 million viewers, making it the most-watched Super Bowl halftime show in history. This surpassed the previous record, held by Michael Jackson, in 1993, outperforming the game. Interestingly, the halftime show even outdrew the average audience of the game itself, which was also a record-breaking Super Bowl, with 127.7 million viewers. Peak viewership. The halftime show reached its peak viewership during the second quarter of the game, with 137.7 million viewers tuning in. These numbers demonstrate the immense popularity and cultural impact of Kendrick Lamar's performance. It not only entertained a massive audience, but also sparked conversations and discussions about music, art, and social issues.
Now, some people are saying that this is the worst Super Bowl performance of all time. And you hear this. You just heard the statistics. This just performed. The Super Bowl and the NFL in general have been losing viewership for decades consistently. The whole reason they had Michael Jackson perform the halftime show because they had got their butt kicked by a sketch comedy show called In Living Color in 1993. So they was trying to compete. They was trying to get 1992, In Living Color beat them. 1993, they tried to beat them back. The In Living Color stole all of the football viewers, all the people who were watching the football game in 1992. Most TV viewers took a break from the football game and went and watched In Living Color and watched it till it was done. You'll catch the end of the game, but you was gonna watch that episode of In Living Color. Or no, I think it was the Super Bowl. What it was they did still they In Living Color did a show just to do on the Super Bowl, and it did that. It stole a whole bunch of viewers. But anyway, they got Michael Jackson perform, and boom, the NFL just started snapping back, start dominating the views, took over Sunday. It became a cultural thing. When Michael Jackson did his thing, the Super Bowl Sunday became, it was like nothing the world had ever seen. The commercials, the football commercials, the beer commercials, and commercials in general, everything just blew up out of control. Michael Jackson changed everything. The economy of the world, entertainment started to make a move to where it is now in 2024, 23, 22. Entertainment is America's number one economic export. It's the number one supporter of the GDP. It contributes to America making money more than anything else. Selling the movies, selling the music. And the number one music that's getting sold and shipped out overseas is rap music. Black American music has always been a huge boon for America. Even before television, black music, every popular music genre here in America, it started with mostly Southern black people. Even rap. Rap tries to say it was created in the East Coast. It comes 100% from the South, from the vaudeville tradition. Rapping was huge in the 60s and in the 50s. And they called it rapping. They called it rapping, literally. You can find articles and you can find footage of people talking about rappity tap and rap. You could find footage. It came from the minstrel shows and vaudeville and all these things. The entertainment industry in America was 100% created by the Jews and the blacks. The Jews were the brains, the blacks were the bodies. 100%. And then Hollywood took over and kicked all the blacks out of entertainment. And the vaudeville stuff became a second culture, the chitlin circuit. Another reason that the black community got so intermingled with the black market 100 years ago was the Prohibition era. Alcohol and drugs, and trust me, everything that I'm talking about is 100% related to Kendrick Lamar's performance. Don't tune out, don't turn off, don't stop listening. I am talking real history. I'm from the hood in Chicago. I'm a real ghetto child. And I probably have autism. So these stats and facts that I'm going to start stating, this is a computer. It's so crazy that I tell people stuff and they don't believe me, especially when I'm saying like 100% factual stuff. But anyway, let's get back to the history lesson of music and America and money. Before blacks start making all this wonderful music, country music, jazz, blues, all this stuff, and every time the blacks made something, the white people would do the marketing thing and it would turn white. Rock was once a black thing. The chitlin circuit was a real thing. And again, this is why the black market got connected with the black community. So entertainment and segregation, it kicked all the black people out of entertainment on purpose. So the black people came up with their own entertainment thing, these comedy clubs, these juke joints, all over the country, a network. And it wasn't just a network for that, it was a network for everything for black people. Black people were always the farmers in this country. And so black people, the majority of blacks have always lived in the South. It's so weird that most people, when they think black Americans, they think the stereotypical urban American like myself, born and raised, or like a New Yorker, or like somebody from LA. Even if they imitate somebody, they'll imitate them when that's really a small number. It's a humongous number. You know, we're talking, I'm from Chicago, there's about 1 million black Chicagoans always. Since I was a kid, about 1 million black people in this city, and then you do the suburbs and the surrounding area, you're going to have to add another 1 million black people. And then you got Detroit with a prominent black population. Then you got St. Louis, Cleveland, and all these cities, major hubs. These are northern cities. You have something called the Great Migration. Jim Crow and segregation, and the original version of Jim Crow, before they even called it Jim Crow, when they was just taking advantage of former slaves with the whole sharecropping, is a word for this. It's a word for this type of, but not a conglomerate, but an illegal conglomerate. But they had this whole little system of sharecropping where they would really take advantage of these farmers. And basically, it was a one step up from slavery. It really was slavery. And then on top of that, you live on this land that's supposedly yours, but you're terrorized by these clans people that will come and murder you anytime they want to. It could be a crazy incident, somebody bumping into somebody at the store, or somebody's looking at somebody. You got a teenager checking another teenager out, but it's the wrong race going in the wrong direction. And violence can happen, terrorizing these people and then forcing them to work, and this is for generations. But anyway, these farms, they would have churches on these farms and stores on these farms because they weren't allowed to shop at the other stores. So they had their own secondary economy set up, and it was connected. Again, they're all farmers. I might need a whole bunch of these seeds that you produce. I'll give you a lot of apple seeds if you give me a lot of peach seeds, and and then, you know, when things are in season, you come and work. The community comes, helps everybody harvest, and this ain't just a community. These people are related through generations and bloodlines. And culturally, this is a really special ethnicity. Very soulful too, and creative and innovative. A lot of them don't even speak the American language. A lot of them don't read the American language, and it's not even important to them. A lot of times they avoid that stuff because it's like, those are our oppressors. We don't even want to learn their culture. We're not assimilating, we're creating. And that was the attitude of the population at all. Don't talk to them. Don't let them know our business. We do what we do. And so there were all these, again, like speakeasies, these juke joints. It's funny too. They talk about, did I play some music? No, I didn't play no music this video. I was thinking about playing some music, but some of that old juke joint music from 100 years ago. Alcohol was illegal, but they had all these underground bars. Sometimes churches would turn into bars. And I'm talking about the black side of the South, but this also happened with white Southerners, more so. It was really associated, bootlegging and stuff like this, and the type of person that would want to buy some bootlegging stuff was associated heavily with blacks and Mexicans, But the white cultures, they did it too. But a lot of times they did it a lot more discreetly, and they did it with a lot less scrutiny. The police force is always focused on the black community, which really everything is a gift and a curse. By them over focusing on the black community, they're forcing the black community to be more conservative and to stay on each other a lot more. And that's one thing that was different about the community when I was a kid. I'm from Chicago. You know, the older brothers, the older men, I never felt safer growing up in the ghetto in Chicago as a little boy. I couldn't even imagine not just feeling safer, but just feeling so powerful. It's rough growing up in the ghetto. But at the same time, you don't feel oppressed like that because this is our stuff and ain't nobody gonna come and take it from us. When shit hits the fan, niggas will run the police up out of those areas because they're so overpopulated. And again, as a kid, you feel safe. Everybody's looking out for the kids. Everybody's protective of the kids. You got your parents looking out for you. You got the people who like your parents or related to your parents looking out for you. And then the people of the community, most of the time, generally speaking, very good energy. You look out for me, I look out for you. The older teenage boy is going to talk to my mom like he would talk to his mom. We all live in the same community. And it's still like that a lot to this day in the hood. I travel so much and I'm transient, aka homeless. And so even when I do travel, I'm staying with people. You know, if I go to another city, I might actually live with them for 2-3 days while I'm there. But and I do take care of my kids, trust and believe. I do take care of my kids. I work hard, and most of my disposable income goes towards my children. If it ain't going towards a bill, it's going towards my kids. And my bills help me keep working so I can send money to my kids. So, you know, my kids are my priority. I got sidetracked there, but that's another stereotype that's against black people. And this performance by Kendrick Lamar was fighting every negative stereotype that the media has portrayed against black people since the blaxploitation era, going back before that. You know, it's so crazy. People talk about how good things were. The president just won on the whole slogan of "Make America Great Again." When? I just was talking about the 1920s. Right now it's the 2020s. Thank God we live in the 2020s. Are you're very ignorant if you think life was easier or simpler 100 years ago. We're talking about sandwich that's between the two World War eras. That's smack dab in World War II right there, I do believe. Hey Siri, hey Google, when was World War II? 1919, I think it started.
World War II officially began on September 1st, 1939, when Germany invaded Poland. It ended on September 2nd, 19...
Hey Google, when was World War One? When was World War One?
World War I began on July 28th, 1914, and ended on November 11th, 19...
So yeah, 1920. It started in 1914, ended in 1918. So we're already a quarter century into here. We have a horrible war. We got horrible wars going on in the world right now, but we don't have what happened 100 years ago. So the 1910s was horrible, World War One. The 1930s, I believe, well, the Great Depression started in the 1920s. So 100 years ago, we was dab smack in the worst depression known to history. You know, you got to go back to biblical famine times. Hey, Google, when was the Great Depression?
The Great Depression was a severe worldwide economic depression that took place during the 1930s. It began in the United States in 1929 and spread to almost every country in the...
So the Great Depression didn't actually start to the 1930s. So the 30s weren't great. That was the Great Depression era. Started in 1929, basically the 30s. And Great Depression was bad. And like they say, it was global. Even back then, the American economy hurts, the world is going to hurt. America starves, the world is going to really starve. America gets a cold, the rest of the world dies from syphilis or something, like Al Capone. Speaking of which, he was definitely tearing Chicago up in the 1920s. No doubt about it. Prohibition was in the 1920s. I think that started in 1919. Anyway, let's keep asking. I'm older. Got a lot of information in here, but I do got to verify it. Hey Google. Hey Google. When did the Prohibition Amendment begin?
The 18th Amendment, which established prohibition in the United States, was ratified on January 16, 1919, and went into effect 1 year later, on January 16, 1920.
Continue. Hey Google. Let's talk about the 1920s.
Absolutely. The 1920s, often called the Roaring Twenties, was a fascinating decade marked by significant social, cultural, and economic changes. Here's a glimpse into this era, a time of contrasts, economic boom. The decade saw a surge in economic prosperity, fueled by industrial growth and technological advancements. This led to increased consumerism and a rise in living standards for many. Social change. The 1920s witnessed
Disposable income. Alcohol is now illegal. Segregation is causing these two industries to blow up, Hollywood and then the black chilling circuit. Perfect fuel for what's about to happen. Prohibition into the gangster era.
a shift in social norms, with women gaining more freedoms, like the right to vote, and a new sense of liberation emerging. The flapper became a symbol of this changing role, with her short skirts, bobbed hair, and independent spirit. Cultural explosion. This era was a hotbed of creativity, with jazz.
I almost want to show it, but I know I'll be getting these copyright strikes. But as she was talking about the flopper, those little mini skirts that they was wearing, ultra mini skirts. I mean, they talk about how women are just now starting to dress promiscuous. Look up promiscuous women from different decades. You're silly. You sound silly.
Music taking center stage and influencing dance, fashion,
Getting into jazz now. This is the jazz era.
and art. The Harlem Renaissance, a vibrant African American cultural movement, flourished during this time. Prohibition. Ironically, the 1920s also saw the prohibition of alcohol, leading to the rise of speakeasies and bootlegging. This created a culture of rebellion and underground activity. Key trends and events. The rise of mass media. Radio broadcasts and movies became increasingly popular, shaping public opinion and creating a shared cultural experience. Technological advancements. The 1920s saw the widespread adoption of automobiles, telephones, and electricity, transforming daily life. The lost generation. Many writers and artists expressed disillusionment with the post-war world and criticized the materialism and superficiality of the era. The Great Gatsby. F. Scott Fitzgerald's novel captured the essence of the Roaring Twenties, exploring themes of wealth.
So we're not going to go too deep into that. Any one of those subjects is such a vast array of things, but we're going to stick to this Kendrick Lamar stuff. So you got the gangster era that comes up in the 20s, the 1920s. Now the gangster era represents two different things. Let's see if Siri could give a real, or Google could give a real succinct answer. Hey Google, what was the gangster era? Bank
The
robberies.
gangster era. This period, largely associated with the 1920s and early 1930s in the United States, was a time when organized crime flourished and notorious gangsters captured the
over.
public's imagination. Here's a breakdown of what characterized this era: the rise of organized crime. Prohibition. The 18th Amendment, which banned the production and sale of alcohol, inadvertently fueled the rise of organized crime.
This is going to be a very long article. Urbanization and immigration. Bam, bam. The Great Potato Famine. Hey Google, when was the Great... No, it's so much information here. They're talking about Al Capone. This does break down both different... So the gangster era means two different things. Really, it means much more than two different
You're
things.
right to pick up on the potential confusion. The great can refer to a few different things, and it's important to be clear about the
No, show me the previous page. Dang it. Tell me about the gangster era.
gangster era is most.
I want to read it. She read some of this, but let's get down to this part that I wanted to read. This don't say the same thing. This is a completely different article. Gang violence was common as gangs fought for control of territory and the black market. This is the 1920s and the 1930s. Gangsters officers, blah, 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 lawlessness. The era was marked by a widespread sense of lawlessness as gangsters were often able to bribe and intimidate law enforcement officers. Let's hope that Trump isn't going to bring that back. It smells like it. It looks like it. This man has a darn Bible with his name on it and hawking everything. He's everything. He's everything that people joked about in the 90s and the 2000s and the 2010s, except more shocking. It's a mix of all the Donald Trump parodies and that parody movie, Idiocracy. The gangster era is often romanticized. It was talking about, it had two names. It had Al Capone. Now, we all know who Al Capone is, especially, like I said, I'm born and raised in Chicago. We learned about him in our history class. Just like I live in Texas now, they teach Texas history in Texas. Well, in Chicago, we learn about our Chicago history, and that's a lot of gangs. And they teach children, or at least they did back in my days. But Al Capone is the first thought that most people have when they think of gangsters. But think about the other gangster eras. There weren't just the bootleggers. It wasn't just the guys selling alcohol, which, and this, in the beginning, they weren't dealing with prostitution too. They was actually anti-prostitution when they very first started. Then that changed real quick. And then they got control of, especially somebody like Al Capone. So Al Capone was the gangster pimp of Chicago. It was horrible. And he ruled Chicago with an iron fist. The anniversary of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre is coming up in about 5 years, 4 years. And it's coming up, and that's when Al Capone really consolidated power and again took over Chicago with an iron fist. He ran bootlegging, which was illegal alcohol sales. He ran racketeering, which the protection racket. All the local business pay you a protection racket so that they don't get vandalized by you or other gangs or other young hoodlums of the neighborhood. And again, this was mostly white neighborhoods, Italian white. There's different ethnicities of whites, yes. This was happening with the Italians. This was happening with the Jews. This was happening with the Polish. This was happening with the Irish. This was happening with so many, about half of the white ethnicities, probably more. The Germans, the Russians, they're all getting involved in this. Probably not the Germans and Russians that much in the 1920s. This is fresh after World War One, so things was very different, and people were very depressed, and people were sick and dying and dead, and population issues and control issues. And so then the other gangster era, the other first name that popped up was John Dillinger. A bandit running around with a Tommy gun killing people. Other gangsters, Bonnie and Clyde, notorious bank robbers. The bank robberies went out of control. Things fueled the gangster era, such as, what was the one thing, what really fueled the gangster? So the V8 car, they was talking about the automobile, came around in the 1920s. And not just that, but they started making different types of automobiles. And the gangsters got holds of faster cars, more powerful guns, and start running things. And so you had gangsters like Al Capone and them who really didn't need the fast cars they did need the firepower, and they did use the firepower. But then you had the bank robbers who would rob these banks and run off. So America has two crazy waves of bank robberies. You got the one back in the Western days, the outlaw days, the cowboy days, those bank robberies, and that sprung up a few times, train robberies and all kinds of stuff like that. But then you had the second wave, which happened 100 years ago. Al Capone, Dillinger, Bonnie and Clyde, the famous notorious gangsters of the 20s and the 30s. So the 20s weren't great for America, and gangs were out of control in America. Violence was out of control in America. People hated immigration and complained about immigration in America 100 years ago. And they definitely did it in the 30s. As they mentioned, the 30s was, now we're hitting World War II era. And the tension that built up to World War II eras and the Nazis and the extermination and all that type of stuff. And this is happening in the 30s and it stretches on into the 40s and it gets, boom, 1942, the nuclear bomb. I do believe, hey Siri, when did Hiroshima blow up?
Hiroshima was struck by an atomic bomb on August 6, 1945. This is from Britannica.
So I was way off. I was off by 3 years. Wow. 1945 is when they dropped the bomb. 1942, I think, is when America got in the... No, because if we dropped the bomb in 1945, we couldn't have got involved as early as 1942, I don't think, because I don't think America was in the war no damn 3 years. I think when we got in the war, it was like a wrap. Hey, Siri, when did America get involved in World War II?
The United States entered World War II on December 8, 1941, following the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. This answer is from USA.
So I was way off, or not way off, a year. So 1941, America did get involved in the war in 1941, and then the nuclear bombs dropped in 1942. But the nuclear bombs was to end the war with the Japanese. The Japanese were still going strong after the Germans, I think. I done made a few mistakes anyway. I love studying war. I love war history, Civil War. We're Americans, and I'm black, and I have ancestors I know for sure. I always knew fought in the Civil War. Most of my current ancestors fought in the army, the military. My grandfather was in the army for World War II. So that's what his youth was like. So that was the 40s. The 50s roll around and bam, now we got crazy Klan terrorism. And there was this snapback. The black people made country music, it blew up, and then the white people took it over. And then the black people reverted to other types of movies by the time the 50s had rolled around. But the white people were mad. And this is when I do believe the racist country music was blowing up in the 50s. What do they call that? Hey, Google, when did country racist music become a genre in America?
Country music's journey to becoming a recognized genre in America is a fascinating one, deeply rooted.
What was the racist country music called?
Some sources say that there is no specific term for racist country music. However, some country music has been accused of having racist themes. For example, a recent song by a popular country music artist was criticized for having racist undertones.
When was rebel redneck country music popular?
While the term rebel redneck country music isn't a formally recognized genre, it seems to capture a certain vibe within country music that has...
I gotta get specific. What are some of those artist names? Because this stuff, Google doesn't like talking about it, and Google doesn't like sharing this music because it's ugly, it's nasty, it's horrible. This is the phone that I could look stuff up like this up. But this is as a matter of fact, I'm not gonna look it up on that phone. That phone is too innocent. That phone is too innocent for what I'm about to look up. It's worth the education, trust me. Hold on one second. Anyway, I do believe I'm having a hard time finding it. Like I said, I think I need to look at it on this phone. They'll actually show me that. I think his name was. Like I said, I got to look for some of those. Yep, this is the guy I'm looking for. I'm not gonna say his name. Google didn't want to give it up, but anyway, this dude was born in 1938. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, there's one of them. It's definitely one of these guys. After retiring in 2003, blah blah blah. He claimed that he did it just for the money and that he didn't set out to spread hate or start trouble. He said at the time there were a lot of resentment, whites towards blacks and blacks towards whites, so everyone had their own feelings. Lots of people changed their feelings over the years. I basically changed my feelings over the years up to the point. Let's see his career real quick. Let's see if I could get to some of this real quick. I'm trying to see the years. So, yep, this guy, who was a really popular guy making this racist country music, he looked like he released his first song in 1959. So it was already very popular at the time. So there was this wave. I almost feel like talking about it, but I'm already shadow banned and YouTube does not like me talking about this one particular song. It's called The Most Racist. Well, anyway, there's a few songs nowadays called The Most Racist Song Ever. And the one that you gonna find if you start looking for it on YouTube is a goofy little jokey joke cartoon like video of some dude rapping and being silly. It's not as offensive as this song that I know is very racist against black men and interracial couples. Oh boy. I feel like talking about that song. Like, share, and subscribe. My channel's too small for me to talk about something like that and actually go over the lyrics. But like, share, and subscribe if you want me to talk about these old racist songs from 1950s and the 1960s. And this was fueling the movement of the Ku Klux Klan. The Ku Klux Klan started really blowing up and getting real popular and spreading. And there's no point in me even looking this up because as you see, Siri and Google don't really want to talk about this and they won't really want to share the results. And I don't disagree with it. And it's not exactly censorship. You know, somebody who says what I just said to either one of these devices, they may be innocent and they might not even know about the music that I'm talking about. They might not even know that it exists or that it's a thing. But people still listen to this at certain bars. If you see a bar with a Confederate flag in some of these southern states, you could go in those bars today in 2024, and I promise you, they'll be playing these artists that I know their names. And like I say, I don't even want to say their names because we don't want to proliferate their music. The music is very hateful. It's very racist. It's very nasty. It's very nasty. You know what I'm saying? Even it's so nasty that you would think that the average racist person will hear this song and be absolutely disgusted. And that's real talk. And again, I had a crazy life, man. Grew up in the streets. I've experienced so many different forms of racism in America. Born and raised in Chicago, then moving down here to Texas, and I was a very aware kid and a very absorbing kid. I absorbed information. I watched news as a little kid. My grandmother, she suffered from schizophrenia. She was mentalized as a young woman, and she even received shock therapy. But one thing that was very prevalent in my family, even amongst the women. And I think this is real big. I'm from Chicago. This is real big. It's funny that black people have this stereotype as ignoramuses that don't know how to read. When my experience growing up in Chicago is, oh my goodness, growing up there was so great. As horrible as some of the bad things were, the wonderful things made it worth it. The museums were unbelievable. And they used to have us kids go to these museums all the time and they would teach us all this amazing stuff. The zoos. We would go to the zoos all the time, and of course, we got good zoos. There's something called the Shed Aquarium. Magnificent, beautiful, wonderful things. And again, architecture in Chicago. You grew up seeing this, and in my family, we read a lot, so I read a lot. And also, I was not raised with any white supremacy whatsoever. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I didn't see images of white Jesus. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you could go back and watch episodes of Good Times that was produced in the 1960s talking about these racial divides and black Jesus and how Jimmy Walker, he was the painter on the show. They lived in the projects on this show. And Jimmy Walker, JJ, he painted a black Jesus, and it was very controversial. And back then, the idea and the image of a black Jesus would piss off white people all the time. And then these same people, these racists don't even know, and it happens all the time. The hypocrisy just spills out of them. They get mad at black Jesus after years and years and years of saying, why does it matter what color he is? Well, it don't matter what color it is. How on earth are you losing your temper and blowing your top because you see a picture of a black Jesus? If it doesn't matter, first of all, the Bible literally says in the 10 Commandments, don't be drawing no pictures of Jesus or anybody in heaven or anybody that's not even it. Don't do that. That's the number one sin. Not the number one sin, but it's close to number one in the 10 Commandments. Don't do that. Don't paint no pictures. Don't show none. No scratch on none. It's idolatry. But anyway, Christians still somehow typically have a lot of pictures and a lot of idols, period. Just a lot of Christian, a lot of variations of Christianity in America are very paganistic and very anti-biblical, and that's one reason that there's so much religious conflict. The traditional American religion of Christianity does a lot of things that the Bible specifically says does not. Painting pictures of Jesus, Christmas trees, gold tinsel, silver tinsel, like literally. Don't cut down the evergreen tree and bring it in your house. But that's what they do. The Bible is also anti-European. It's another reason that Christianity has been dying in America, because so many white people who were born and raised Christians, if and when you read the Bible, I read the Bible cover to cover as a 19-year-old, and I absorbed it pretty well. And I still continue to read it to these days. I got several Bibles in my little bookshelf right here. Anyway, and I use real study Bibles. I got this as a serious study Bible, and I got this as a study Bible to study with people, present to people. Secondary Bible also, if I'm with somebody and I do some kind of Bible study, I can have them let them study from that Bible. But Jesus is black, and that's been expressed and has been fought about, and argued about since Nat Turner, at the very least. Hey Siri, when was Nat Turner executed?
Okay, I found this on the web for when was Tina Turner executed. Check it out.
You see why I asked Google more. Hey Google, when was Nat Turner executed?
Nat Turner was executed on November 11th, 1831.
1831. What was known back then as the worst from the perspective of the white people. That's another thing. These people who are mad at the Kendrick Lamar show, they're talking about this music is separating us. We've never been together. We've never been with you. From your perspective, you see the Nat Turner as the worst slave rebellion ever. From the black perspective, the most successful slave rebellion ever. And that's the only way that we could see it. Now, also, I don't believe in the anti-whiteness at all. And I don't like the narrative that white people are more racist or mostly racist. That's not fair at all to American white people. This modern day incarnation that exists, and they were created from the antebellum South, and they lived through segregation, Jim Crow, the explosions of the Klans, terrorism that popped up here and there, and other organizations like the Klan, or like modern day organizations that are even worse than the Klan, such as the Aryan Brotherhood. This is no secret. The FBI has been saying and listing the Aryan Brotherhood as the most dangerous gang in America for long time. Long time. Long time. Long time. Long time. And it's true. I've been to prison myself. The white supremacy gangs are no joke. I went to prison here in Texas, and I have to listen to people tell me that there's no racism, no institutionalized racism. Really? Don't affect no Texas prison. Not one of them. There's hundreds of prisons here in Texas. You telling me not one of them has any institutionalized racism? I've seen it with my own eyes. And you telling me these places in the middle of these counties that I know exist, and I know as a trucker and even just me, the way I lived before that, a traveler, I always traveled. But I have to listen to other people who say they're conservative like me, who clearly aren't. Well, they're not conservative like me. I'm a Bible dude. Donald Trump didn't impress me by making a Bible. He ticked me off real bad. I don't like that. Who the hell are you to put your name on a Bible? You of all people gonna put your name on the Bible? You of all people, of all the damn presidents that we've had, previous president Joe Biden, you might say that he put his foot in his mouth from day one to day none, but he 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 definitely wasn't as possibly evil as Trump. Capitalist, money loving, money grubbing, lascivious, lustful dude. He don't. Joe Biden, he came across as creepy. I ain't gonna lie. I'm a conservative, so I used to call him man Creepy Joe most of my life. Most times I refer to Joe, I probably called him Creepy Joe. That's what we used to call him back in the day. Trump changed it to Sleepy Joe, and I find that suspicious. We already call him the cantankerous conservatives. We already call him Creepy Joe. So why would you change it to Sleepy Joe when Creepy Joe it hits much harder? A la Kendrick Lamar's performance, what we're here to talk about today. And Trump was in the audience. Trump was in the audience. And Trump would probably love to take credit for the record-breaking views. He's the first president to ever attend a Super Bowl Sunday. Again, idiocracy. Idiocracy. Presidents ain't got time for that shit. First time I cursed. I made this whole video without cursing. But presidents don't got time for that shit. The fucking Super Bowl. A 4-hour fucking commercial with a little bit of football playing in the middle. The fuck out of here, man. And then on top of it, you got to put up with all this racist stuff that you got to see and hear in the interim. Most of the athletes are black. They got so much to say about these athletes on a crazy, critical level that's extra. You know what I'm saying? Baby mamas and stuff like this. You know what I'm saying? These current black athletes are no more wild than Babe Ruth was. But Babe Ruth was the Bambino. Smoking cigarettes, chasing prostitutes openly, blatantly. Media loves him. Elvis Presley marries his 14-year-old cousin. Press loves him. Tupac goes down for a bogus sexual assault case where the media knows the details. They have public record access to see the legal filings. They know that he's not at all, the charges are definitely trumped up. You're saying a certain charge that puts a certain act in people's minds that you know is not the real act. You demonize Tupac. You anglicize Elvis Presley. And Elvis is just one of many like that. Johnny Cash, and other outlaw rockers. Some of those country singers that I'm talking about. The media, I really can't tell you if the media, how they played that on TV. I'm sure they did play it on TV. Some local stations, TV was like airwaves. You had a little building with a big antenna on the top and you put out TV signals that way. and a lot of local stations. Anybody can make a local station, so it probably was not even probably. That stuff was on the radio in the South all the time, especially on the AM dials. That racist hillbilly music, it was crazy. It's crazy. And as a black person, you work hard, you want to buy a radio, and you got to turn it on and listen to that. I'm a trucker. I started driving trucks over 20 years ago. They always recommend that truck drivers carry CBs with them. But one thing I learned real quick, CBs are a part of the job. So sometimes I'm in a vehicle with a CB. I prefer not to be. I don't need to hear people on that radio because they often spew race. Most of the stuff you hear on there, somebody gonna come on there and say some crazy racist stuff. Crazy racist stuff. You know, as a trucker and a worker, delivered pizza many years. I drove Uber many years. I do customer stuff. I deal with all kind of stuff, bandits and stuff like that. Most of these criminals that try to rob you as a delivery driver or Uber driver, most of these criminals that you encounter that you see, if you see somebody get accosted on the streets, even in Chicago, even as a little boy, some of the crimes, it used to blow my mind as a little boy how predatory the cops were in the black neighborhood towards the black people, especially the young black people, high school age black guys who can't defend themselves legally. They don't have the money or the knowledge. But anyway, so aggressive with them. And then I would see white crimes. I would see crime in Chicago, growing up in Chicago. I saw all kind of crimes. I took the public transportation and took the subway a lot. So you drive, you go past all these different communities, all these different racial neighborhoods. And I seen so many crimes. The last time I was in Chicago and somebody tried to commit a crime against me, it was a white dude on the subway. He didn't actually do it, but he was like threatening me and stuff and like that. And he was like acting crazy with me. You know what I'm saying? And it got to several points where it was like, I might have to fight this dude. And I did not want to fight him. He seemed crazy, like a dirty junkie, dirty Chicago junkie, riding the subway back and forth, getting high, panhandling, hustling. You know, I'm from that city. If he would have jumped towards me, he would have probably got fucked up horribly. I grew up in Chicago when there was no cameras on the trains. There wasn't, and if it was, Chicago police didn't give a fuck in the 80s. Even if they pretended like they gave a fuck, it was just too much shit going on in the 90s and the 80s in Chicago for them to really respond to anything. These days, when they don't respond to crimes, it's racist because crimes are not as abundant as they were in the 80s and the 90s. You got people lying, white people mostly lying, trying to say that it's way worse, it's way out of control. I promise you, watch any documentary about the projects in New York in the 60s or Chicago in the 60s, the 50s. There was a reason. The Black Panthers, I don't know if I mentioned it in this video, but 1968 was a big year for the Black Panthers. And it was big as far as they were blowing up, coast to coast, media attention, recruitment. Everybody want to be a Black Panther. Everybody's trying to buy certain jackets and hats to look like these niggas with shotguns. And it's just, boom, a spectacle, blowing up. And this is really one of the things that accidentally, the road to hell is paved in good intentions. The Black Panther movement turned into the gangs. The Black Power, these black chapters, these Black Panther chapters, they end up turning into boys organizations, boys things, and those boys things end up turning into gangs. But it's natural and it's organic. It's natural and it's organic. It's going to happen just like the gangs are fighting with each other. This Kendrick Lamar, which we're talking about here, the Kendrick Lamar Drake beef, it represents what happened with the gang.